please welcome Chief of Staff of Product at Slack, Jess Fain.
All right, y'all ready to talk about the roadmap? Come on, I can hear more than that. Let's hear it for the roadmap. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Slack's product roadmap session. My name is Jessica Fain. I'm the chief of staff to our head of product here at Slack, and I'll be joined by my colleagues Salman and Matt, who are PMs on our product team here at Slack as well. We're so excited to take you through the roadmap today, and what you'll be hearing is a synthesis of some things you've heard in other sessions and keynotes, as well as some things you haven't heard at all yet. So, a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. We are going to have the run of show for a while, and then at the end we'll have Q&A that you can submit questions online on slido.com, so you can just go on your phone, enter the event code Slack, and select the opportunity track. You'll also see instructions for this on every slide, so if you think of a question as we're going, you don't need to remember this. The other thing you'll notice on every slide is on the bottom right, we'll have a key to indicate whether something is coming soon or launched so that you can keep up with expectations of what we're working on next. OK, so we're ready to get into the good stuff. Y'all ready? All right, good. Thank you for the claps, sympathy claps. OK, somebody reminded me that when we last did this roadmap session, I said everyone knows about dad jokes, but I promise you some really good mom jokes. So get ready for that, too. Now, think back to a time when you were part of a group that wasn't on the same page. Raise your hands if this has ever happened to you at work or at home. It's a pretty universal problem. And I'm married, which is a place that not being on the same page can happen from time to time. We have our 5-year wedding anniversary next month, and we do a weekly date night here in San Francisco in the city. And this was a text exchange we had. I said to my husband, "I'm at Van Ness and Fell." And he got so worried. He said, "Are you OK?" And I said, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" What he didn't realize is I was at the corner of Van Ness and Fell Street right here in San Francisco. Now, this is a harmless example of talking past each other and something that has some humor to it. But we know that lack of alignment and not being on the same page can have real impactful consequences. In September of 1999, NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter burned and broke into millions of pieces. And this was a horrific outcome, but the root cause of the problem was actually quite preventable. There were 2 engineering teams working on the project, and they were using different systems of measurement. One team was using metric system, and the other was using the US system of measurement, which is obviously the correct system, but the real problem was they weren't using the same one. So not only were the calculations lost in translation, but the spacecraft was quite literally lost in space. The Mars orbiter crashed, $125 million down the drain, lost on inches and meters. This inability to be on the same page cost them a tremendous amount, not just in terms of dollars, but in cultural cost, too, in people's belief that they could be on the same page as their team members. And these kinds of things happen all the time, not because people aren't trying hard enough or working fast enough or because they don't possess the right skills, but because they're talking past each other, missing the simple details that allow their work to be successful. Now, since this time, NASA has come a tremendous way, and they've focused inward to create a strong culture of collaboration and teamwork. They've had numerous successful missions to Mars, and today, we're so excited that we can call NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab a Slack customer. Convenient enough for this example. Yes, claps for NASA. They're very cool. And NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab is actually using Slack to align developers across 110 different buildings, helping them stay on the same page for mission-critical projects, so the Mars orbiter crash can never happen again. All this is to say, we know that collaboration is hard. It's almost trite to say that, but we know that people want to do their best work, and organizational alignment is how we get there. Now, we promised we wouldn't use too many buzzwords in this presentation, so we want to talk about what we mean about organizational alignment. What actually happens when we are aligned as an organization? It really boils down to 3 main components. Do you, as an individual, feel empowered to do your best work? Are you able to collaborate within your team effectively? And is it easy to work with other teams, both inside and outside of your organization? Are you all pulling in the same direction? And on top of all this, are you confident that you can work within your organization securely and at scale? When these things are out of sync, energy is spent pulling in different directions, and the net effect is zero. When they're in sync, which we've all experienced, those teams just jiving together, progress can be made in the direction of an organization's mission and values. And that makes teams more agile, more cohesive, more successful, and in my experience, even happier. And that's what we hope you'll see reflected in our roadmap today. At Slack, we really want to build features that align your teams in these ways. So I'm going to start out with the most important piece of that puzzle, the people. At its core, an organization is made up of individuals, hopefully working all toward the same goal together. And organizational alignment means that each and every person can do their best work quickly and easily. The tools that we use shouldn't get in the way of us doing our best work. In fact, they should help enhance it. So we're excited to share some of the ways that will help people just simply get work done by letting them work quickly, efficiently, and on their terms. All right, let's get into it. The first thing I'm excited to announce is Slack is launching today in 3 new languages: UK English, Brazilian Portuguese, and Latin American Spanish. Pretty stoked. Any folks who speak these languages on the screen here? Do we have any? Oh, we've got some claps. OK, I know our CTO, Cal, was here. He's very glad to now have the proper spellings in UK English. But this is really about empowering the more than half of Slack's user base that is outside of the US. We know that you work in diverse and multinational organizations, and we want to continue to support that both in our product and via our customer support. So that's a bit about the languages that we support and the way that people communicate in Slack. But what about the tools that they use? One of our big areas of investment this year is improvements to desktop. Most of us spend a ton of time on our laptops, and we don't always have the most reliable internet connection. We know that deadlines and deliverables don't just change because you're working on a train or moving around past Wi-Fi dead zones. So one of the things we're most excited to bring you this year is offline read mode. You'll be able to boot up Slack, read messages, and react to and star messages and files, all while offline. The second improvement we're making to desktop is about performance. We know that Slack needs to keep up with the rigors of your day, and we're actively working on the nuts and bolts behind the scenes so that booting up Slack, switching between workspaces, even referencing channels you haven't been at in months are smoother and faster than ever before. And last on desktop is improvements come at the less cost and memory usage, so your computer won't have to work as hard as you work on Slack. So we've talked about languages, we've talked about the physical tools that we use. How about how we find information? We're bringing to you a single home for all things search. How many in the audience know about Command K? OK, actually a fair amount. That's pretty impressive. If you leave with one Slack tip today, let it be Command K. You will not be able to believe you lived in Slack without it. It's what we call the quick switcher, so that you can get to channels and conversations more quickly, more easily. And we'll be adding into this environment as well all the files, the channels, and the people relevant to your search query. You can look for things you already know exist, like where did I put that message? Where did I put that file? Which happens to me all the time. Or you can discover new information that you didn't even know existed before that. The search bar will be your one-stop shop to find and navigate everything you need in Slack. But what about creating messages? So some of you know that you can already use tick marks and scratch through, but these are hard to remember, and so we're actually adding a text editor on both desktop and mobile so that you don't have to remember the formatting tools. You can just have that toolbar right then and there. This is to allow you to write richer text, project status, company-wide announcements, whatever really needs that true formatting. And the best part about it is that we'll also have the ability for you to see these messages and preview them before you send them, so that you'll know exactly what your audience will receive. And we're trying to bring the same kind of ease of use to the apps that you use in Slack as well. We recently launched a UI framework known as BlockKit that helps developers present information from their app in a simpler and much more glanceable way. With apps, we really want to make sure that people can take action from within Slack quickly and just get back to doing their work. So we want to show you an example of an app that we've seen already use BlockKit. This is the Guru application, which we use internally at Slack. It's a knowledge management tool. And you can see here, you can ask Guru, how can you help me? But this is really a wall of text, and it's hard to parse through. With BlockKit, Guru was really able to make this much more glanceable, the same information, but able to take direct action from this message, as opposed to having to read through all these many bullet points. We actually have a BlockKit design clinic at our Curiosity stage track where you can consult with our team on how to use BlockKit for your internal apps. And we're obviously so excited about all of those internal developers that are building apps on Slack, but not everybody has a developer, has the resources to build their own custom apps. And so as you saw yesterday in the keynote, we're so excited to work on Workflow Builder and to bring this to you. So to bring this alive with another example that from yesterday's keynote, I'm wondering if anyone in the front of the audience has a good vacation planned coming up. Anyone going anywhere cool? Where are you going? Oh, you're going to Hawaii. What island? Kauai. Ah, my favorite. And what's your name? Pamela. Pamela's going to Kauai, and she needs to submit a PTO request. We're all very jealous, but we still need to, for our internal processes, make sure we understand when Pamela's taking off and if her manager has approved this. So let's show how we would do this in an onboarding, in a quick flow that we can build in seconds without any coding skills at all. So we'll set up a slash command that we can use to say /HR leave request. We'll build in a simple form where employees can add information related to that request, when they're leaving, how many days off they're requesting, and their manager who can approve it. And then we can channel all of these things into one channel so that we have an audit trail of all of the requests that have been made and approved. And like you saw yesterday, just in minutes, we've built our own custom application that will allow us to help this trip to Kauai be as successful as possible with the support of our company. So you can join the Workflow Builder pilot by joining at this URL here, slack.com/workflowautomation. It's in a closed pilot today, but we'll be bringing it to all of our customers soon. So I've talked a little bit about how Slack is working to empower the real heart of the organization, the people that make it what it is. And I'm excited to bring up my colleague Salman to tell you a bit about how we're empowering teams to work more effectively together. Salman?
Thank you so much, Jess. My name is Salman Suhail, and I'm a group product manager on the Slack platform team. Now, you've just heard from Jess some of the ways that we are, and some of the investments that we're making to empower every single individual in your organization to do some of the best work of their lives. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about how we can expand that, to talk a little bit more about how we're maximizing the value that teams can deliver, but also the value that multiple teams can come together and expanding that beyond the organizational walls as well. Now, chances are, regardless of whatever role you're in, you're spending your days scheduling meetings on calendar, collaborating on files, and communicating via email. And here at Slack, we take a lot of pride in not just connecting the people that you work with on a daily basis, but also bringing together all of the tools that you use as well. Combining both the people and the tools, we believe, creates an extreme amount of value that brings a little bit more productivity into your working life. And so that's a little bit what I'm going to talk about today. Let's go ahead and start with calendaring. We've already launched the ability to sync your Slack status with your Google Calendar. Without any effort on your part at all, you'll be able to know whether you are available to talk, or your teammates will know whether you're available to talk or busy with something else. And honestly, this is the exact type of effortless clarity that I'm personally looking for, that reduces my daily stress level. It lets the people on my team know whether I'm available to collaborate with them, or if I'm busy with something else that requires my attention right now. But it also, more importantly than this, it kind of begins to instill a culture of courtesy within your teams so that your teammates can know without asking whether you're available. Now, we've already launched this with Office 365, and we're bringing this to Google Calendar as well, and we're really excited about that. But we're just scratching the surface here. We're excited to bring the ability to schedule meetings right from within Slack. Imagine you're on the go, messaging a colleague from your phone, and they ask you whether you have the time today to sync or not. Right from the keyword of today, you'll be able to pull up a calendar invite and find a time that works for you, schedule it right within Slack. And this is all from your mobile phone. There's no need to switch apps. There's no need to go back and forth and back and forth and find a time that works for the both of you. We'll intelligently figure all of that out right within Slack so that you guys can spend less time coordinating and more time collaborating. Next, let's take a little moment to talk about files. Now, we understand that files are one of the foundational aspects of Office collaboration, and we've been spending a lot of time and investments creating deeper integrations with file providers so that you can go from working in channels to collaborating on documents seamlessly. For example, our Google Drive app already will proactively prompt you if you try to share a file with a group of people who don't have access to that file. It will completely respect all of your organization's governance rules around who should be able to access that file, and it will prompt you with several options so that you can make sure that if you're not just sharing with a file to go back and forth and discover that people don't have access, but instead you're ensuring that the right people and only the right people have access to that content when they need it. Just last month, we launched the ability to preview full Office 365 documents directly from Slack. It doesn't matter if you're on your mobile phone or if you're on a computer without Office installed. You can still preview those files, find the information that you need to make the decisions to move work forward. And we're really excited about this. Now, we know that we've just scratched the surface here. You are already paying for so many different file providers. And it's tremendously important to us that you can maximize the value that you're getting from all of these file providers. So we're super excited that we're making investments in all of the major file providers, but we're also opening up APIs so that we can support on-premise solutions as well. So whether you're in the cloud or whether your documents are on-premise on servers at locations, we want to bring them into Slack. We want to support you collaborating on them and ensuring they are fully indexed, searchable, and previewable, all right within Slack. Lastly, let's talk about email. Now, we just heard from our morning keynote, Slack and email have always had a little bit of an interesting relationship with each other. We know that, but we also know that every single person in your company is unique, and different people choose different tools to get work done. And we've just announced we'll be rolling out Email Bridge, which allows you to message someone. If you're in Slack, and if I try to DM my colleague who happens to not spend all of their days inside of Slack, they'll receive that message inside of their email inbox. That way, we can connect this team together, regardless of the tools that they would prefer to use to get work done. Coming soon, we're hoping to close this loop so that the person who is sitting in their email inbox can reply to this direct message, and me, as an individual who prefers to spend my time in Slack, I can receive this message in Slack. This way, we're even further reducing the invisible walls and barriers that exist within your teams and within your companies simply because of the individual tools that people choose to use. We want to bring these teams closer together regardless of that choice. Now, we intimately understand that the need for collaboration and alignment doesn't end with your immediate team. In fact, it doesn't even end with the team right next door. It doesn't even end within your organization's walls. You need to be able to collaborate with other teams just as effectively as you do your own, whether they are part of your company or whether they're a part of other companies. And we know that undoubtedly a lot of that external-facing work, that happens over email, and we know that that's not changing anytime soon. There are already existing Slack plus email integrations. You can forward an email with a forwarding address, but we thought that we could make it so much better. We're launching a new email add-on that works for both Gmail and Outlook, and with it, with one click, you'll be able to take any of your emails and push them into your Slack team, so that if you're having a correspondence, let's say with a potential customer or with a contractor, you can bring that into Slack in order to collaborate on it. And now we know emails, they can be a little boring. And so looking ahead, we want to improve this experience by bringing over full HTML previews from the email inbox and into Slack. So we know there are a lot of marketers out there who spend a lot of time perfectly crafting the perfect email, and we want to make sure that value doesn't get lost when it gets moved over into Slack. And so we're really excited to bring bring back HTML previews so that content's available. Now, email is definitely one of the ways that you can collaborate across teams and across companies. But we're Slack, and we believe that there is a better way. You've heard about shared channels during yesterday's keynote. Shared channels allow you to connect multiple Slack teams together so that they can collaborate as if they were one team. And we're super excited that over 13,000 of our paid customers are already using the shared channels beta. And on average, each one of those customers is sharing 4 channels with a different organization. This is super exciting. And so this summer, we're really thrilled to open the shared channels beta to all of our customers, including those on enterprise grade. And to learn a little bit more about that, I'm inviting you personally to join the channel Work Beyond Your Organization's Walls with Slack, where we're going to talk a little bit about not only, we're going to show a live demo, but we're going to talk about some of the best practices in order to maximize the value out of utilizing shared channels and how you can bring a multitude of companies together, but also to ensure that you can do this securely, safely, and at scale to make sure there's no accidental data leakages. Now, I'm really excited to pass it over to my colleague, Matt, who's going to show you how we're able to deliver this at scale and administer it as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Salman. All right, thank you, Salman. So hi, everyone. My name is Matt Mullen. I'm a product manager on our enterprise team. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the tools and features we're building to make it easier to administer Slack securely and at scale. So as you heard from Jess, we're making it easier for you as the individual to use Slack, as well as from Salman around your team and how you can collaborate externally with other teams. Now, all of this is amazing, except as administrators, you also need to make sure that you can do this in a way that scales inside your organization. So first off, how many of you in the audience are admins? All right, that's a good number of people. So admins are people that are adding guest accounts, that are approving apps, that are doing all the sort of administrative tools and functionality that you have to do to get an actual workspace set up. And so admins, you are really the unsung heroes of today's business world. And what I mean by that is you're in charge of hundreds of apps inside your organization. You're constantly getting requested to improve an app like Zoom, or you need to administer Okta, you need to provision people into Slack, and it's not an easy job. You're stretched thin, and you get lots of requests all the time. When I first started at Slack 5 years ago, our largest paid customer was 100 people, and they had a really simple request. It was, we would just want to collaborate a little bit of an easier way, and we have a very basic set of admin functionality that we need. Now, fast forward today, 5 years ago, or 5 years later, we have 85,000 paying customers. Every one of them has varying needs different workflows, and has a couple different things that they need from an administration side that we don't necessarily always have ready at their hands. So our goal is to make it easier to administer Slack at scale and with the enterprise-grade security features that you'd expect. So the first feature I'd like to show you is announce-only channels. So how many of you have ever been part of a large company-wide channel only to see it go maybe off topic quickly? Maybe you did not channel mention or not hear mention in a channel that you didn't mean? All right. You're not alone. I was guilty of that when I first joined Slack, and it was a lesson I learned, and I was like, whoops, I wish I had not done that. So we've all been there, and that's what announce-only channels is going to allow you to do. The first thing that you'll be able to do as an admin is be able to set a channel to be read-only. So this isn't just your general channel, which is what is available today. You can do this for any channel inside your organization. And within the channel, you'll be able to specify, so let's say it's an internal announcements channel, you'll be able to specify who else can post in that channel. So if it's your internal comms team, that's great. You can add them on top of the admins. You can also allow threading. So you can turn threading to be on or off. So if it's an internal announcements channel and you want to be able to get some feedback about a specific topic, you can certainly do that. Now, this is what it would look like if you're an end user and you don't have the ability to post into that channel. It's read-only. You can still see the message. We still allow emoji reactions, so it's some sentiment that you can get that you wouldn't get from an announcement through an email. And one of the cool features with this is that you'll be able to lock the membership so that everyone in your organization is in the channel. So this already exists on Enterprise Grid today with our cross-workspace channels, but it will be coming soon to all paid customers. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit around admin APIs. So we know we've got lots of great features in Slack, and people are excited to use them as soon as we roll them out. But we also realize that admins have a complicated set of things that they need to approve before we actually can enable that. So we have the opportunity to empower our admins to be much more efficient if we give them better APIs. And we've heard this feedback through our customer advisory boards, our sales team, and our amazing support team. So to kind of imagine what admin APIs are and how that can help your organization, let's take an example. So imagine you're the admin of a large consulting company, and you've decided to use Slack to spin up new workspaces for every single consulting engagement you have with the client. Now today, if you wanted to do that, you manually have to go in and create a workspace. You have to set the settings and permissions. You have to set who's in the channel, all the sort of things that come with that. With our admin APIs, what we're doing is we're going to be releasing a set of tools that allow you to automatically build these workflows using our APIs to meet your specific business needs. So in this example of a consulting company, you'll be able to automatically provision a new workspace, create the default channels for that workspace, set the settings, and then automatically provision groups and individuals into those channels. On top of that, we're also making some changes to how private channel management works. So we hear a lot of feedback around private channels are great. We're glad you have them inside of Slack, but we want to make sure that we can control who could invite people into these private channels. In today's world, anyone that's in a private channel can invite somebody else, and we realize that that is not always the exact thing that you might want inside of your enterprise organization. So we'll be adding APIs that allow you to not only manage who can invite people into that specific channel, but also lock the channel membership to a specific group of people. That way you can ensure the people that are in that private channel are the right people. Now, we also understand that you have workspaces, but a lot of the things that go on in workspaces are apps and integrations. And so admins need the insight into the apps that are being used inside their organization. And with that, we're going to be making a series of changes to improve the app management experience inside of Slack. First off, what we already have and what we've done is inside of our Enterprise Grid product, we have the org app view. So if you're managing an organization with hundreds of workspaces, you can see every single app that's being used inside your organization in one place, but realize that that's not enough. So we'll be releasing APIs built on top of our admin-approved apps functionality that will allow you to do things like whitelisting scopes for apps that might be posting in channels. So for example, let's say the Twitter bot, you're okay with adding that because all it's doing is posting into a specific channel. You'll be able to automatically approve those style apps for that specific scope. You'll also be able to pre-approve apps for your organization. So if you have adopted Zoom as your company-wide video conferencing tool, rather than having to go into every single workspace and approving that app manually, you'll be able to automatically pre-approve those apps so they can be installed. On top of that, you'll also be able to blacklist scopes. So if there's certain scopes that you're like, we absolutely don't allow this, or before this gets installed, we need to approve it, you can set up your own workflow to blacklist the scope. Now, these are the APIs that are coming soon. I want to talk a little bit about some of the APIs that we have today. So custom profile fields is a feature that we have within Slack where you can sync profile fields from services like Workday, Okta, Active Directory, all into Slack. And that's using our Skim API. Many companies are using that today to sync fields like department, country, organization, manager, or even fields like cost center, which can be hidden so no one can see it inside of Slack. Now, we've had those fields in for a while, and people are using that as a way to increase search and visibility of users inside of Slack. But what we haven't had is the ability to export that information inside of our analytics dashboard. So what we added a couple weeks ago is the ability to not only view all this information, but also to run exports. So you can see who from different departments is talking to one another, who from different countries is working together, so you can have a little bit more insight into how people are using Slack. Now, you heard this morning from Alon around enterprise key management. So just last month, we launched this feature. And as a reminder, enterprise key management gives your organization complete visibility and control over your data in Slack using your own encryption keys. So this allows your team to share sensitive conversation and files into Slack while still meeting the strictest of security requirements. And what makes EKM really unique in the case of, let's say there's an incident, is you don't have to revoke the keys for your entire organization. They can still use Slack the same way that they would use it, whereas in past examples, you'd have to revoke everything. So with Alon's demo that you saw this morning, you can revoke a specific hour window in a specific channel as a way to make sure that that information isn't still revealed, but everyone else can still use Slack. Now, since our launch, we've seen adoption from a number of customers in industries such as financial services, technology, consulting, and big media organizations. And finally, on the security side, you just saw a demo this morning around some of the secondary authentication forms that we're adding inside of Slack. With biometric and PIN unlock, you can ensure that you can have the confidence that only your employees are able to access Slack on their mobile devices. And as more and more companies are moving to the employees can bring their own devices to work, this becomes an increasingly important tool that allows you to make sure that no one is using Slack that shouldn't. So these are some of the enterprise-grade security features that we're building on top of Slack. But I want to circle back on alignment before we get into our Q&A session. So our end goal is to help your organizations achieve better alignment. We're doing this in a couple different ways. One, we're empowering each and every employee to do their best work in Slack, whether you speak a different language, whether you need help with the WYSIWYG editor, all of those things are for the individual. Number two, we're making Slack work better with files, calendars, email, all the things that you're already using, as well as improving our feature with shared channels so that you can communicate externally with the other organizations that you're already working with. And lastly, administering Slack securely and at scale. So as your company grows in using Slack, you can also continue to administer it so that if it's still just 2 admins inside your organization that are in charge of Slack across hundreds of thousands of people, you can do that in a way that automates the workflow so that you're not being stretched too thin. So with that, I'd like to invite Jess and Salman back on stage for a little bit of Q&A.
All right, fantastic. Well, we got all of your questions that you submitted on Slido. Thank you so much for doing that, and I'm just loading them up here. All right, so the first question I'll ask for you guys is, what is the plan for more granular administrative controls for admins? The all-or-nothing approach isn't working for my organization.
Well, I have good news. That might have been submitted before our API slides, but I think the first set of things in the strategy that we're taking is that we're going to be rolling out a new set of admin APIs. A lot of those exist today but are private within Slack, and so we'll be making many of those public as well as adding APIs for things. One of them that I didn't mention is guest management. So that's one of the largest pain points that we hear from customers, which is I have hundreds of guest accounts inside of my workspace or my organization. I need to be able to administer them and know who they are, but I also don't want to go in one by one and ask, hey, are you still managing this person? Should they still be in Slack? So adding APIs that allow you to control that. And then eventually our goal is to add UI for a lot of those features so that you're not just having to use the APIs for those things, but you can eventually do that inside the dashboard.
So we got a couple of more philosophical questions on how we develop products at Slack. So one of them is, how do you know if a product is ready to launch? Salman, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So I think our products kind of go through multiple phases. We definitely, and it really depends on the nature of the product. So we have something called a TS release, which is our internal word for we dog food everything that we do ourselves, and we use it internally extensively. And you heard a little bit from Stewart about the importance of transparency. So every single product we develop has a feature channel, a launch channel, a develop channel, and when it's getting ready to launch, has a feedback channel. And the feedback channel is totally public. We are launching a feature inside of our company, and anyone who has opinions about it gets to come into that feedback channel, and as a product manager, I get to listen to that feedback. And I would say 80% of the time, it's not the obvious things that you get feedback on. It's like, wow, we didn't even think of that perspective. And we do rounds of this internally, multiple rounds, and then if this is a more enterprise-focused feature, we'll often launch it within a private beta. We'll test with some of our largest customers, and we'll do really direct one-on-one user interviews with them to make sure that we're meeting our customers' needs. And then in the end of the day, there comes a point where it's like, now we got to pull the trigger and hold a breath and make sure we did all of our due diligence and our research and really stand behind it. So I think it's a combination of feedback from the team, from the company, from our customers, and then you get ready to go and kind of just hold it together.
Oh, thanks, Salman. And another question on how we build products at Slack. How do we prioritize what to build? Matt, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. How do we prioritize? So there's a couple different ways. One, a lot of what you see on our roadmap comes directly from customer feedback. When I first started here 5 years ago, we didn't have an enterprise roadmap of these are the exact things we want to build. It organically came to us from the organizations that were adopting Slack. And hey, the first thing was, if you want us to use Slack, let's say it was a large organization and it was a small team that was using it, you need to add things like single sign-on and provisioning so that we can use our single sign-on provider with Slack. So that's how we figured that sort of stuff out. As we've grown in size, we now have tons of different product teams, and the way that we're executing and the way that we're deciding on what to actually prioritize is, one, is based on customer feedback, two, based off of our overall strategy of where we want to be as a company, and then three, around sort of shared goals between an organization. So Salman is on the platform side, I'm on the enterprise side. We hear feedback about app management, for example. Those are the things that we collaboratively want to work on together, and we hear that from both small customers, large customers, et cetera. And that's how we decide, okay, this is something that we should prioritize for this quarter, this year, et cetera.
Great. Somebody asked, I would love a way to see a way for my executive to post in our general channel without giving them full admin access. Is there a plan to allow for this?
Good news. Yes, announcement-only channels. That'll be the way to do it. So again, with announcement-only channels, in today's world of Slack, you have the general channel. And the general channel is the only channel that you have this ability to say, only this set of people can post into it. With announcement-only channels, you'll be able to do that with any channel inside of Slack. So yes, for the executive channel, you could create a new one. It could be an exec AMA channel. It could be a What's on My Mind channel. You can have the admins that can post in that, and then just that individual without having to make them an admin of all of Slack.
That's great. Yeah, sometimes executives don't make the best admins. Some of us.
Nor do they need to be admins, yeah.
Nor do they need to be, nor should they be, right?
Yeah.
It's a disruption from their work. And one more specific question on some of the things we were talking about. Are the desktop enhancements coming for both Windows and Mac?
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's nice that all the answers to the questions are yes. That's a real plus for us. And so I just want to ask one of my questions. This wasn't from our audience members, but I'm curious from you all, what are you most excited for this upcoming year? Either a feature or the way that your teams are working. What's got you the most jazzed?
I think the coolest feature that we have and that's continued to be advanced is shared channels. Shared channels is, if you haven't used it, it's sort of like, oh, okay, a shared channel, I get it, I connect with another company. But if you think about it holistically, all of you are here because you are likely using Slack in one way or another, and you all work with different partners or different organizations that are also using Slack. How many of you have been invited as a guest account to another Slack workspace where now you have another one that you have to switch back and forth between? It's fairly common. With shared channels, you can connect between those workspaces without actually having to go be a new member on another workspace and have to remember to go click into that. So you have kind of a single view of all of what you're working on at one given time. So for me, the power of shared channels, like initially what we saw yesterday, where all these organizations have already made these connections, I think we're on the right step. But where that's going to go is going to be huge.
I'm going to cheat and give two answers because they're kind of related to each other. I'm going to be honest and say I actually think the thing I'm most excited about primarily is admin APIs and admin management. And it sounds like kind of a boring thing to be excited about sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really nerdy answer,
It
Salman.
really is.
I love it.
But I think one of our goals is to turn admins into champions of Slack and really provide our admin customers the ability to set up their organizations for success. And it's a really empowering role to kind kind of like raise them up and be able to design like Slack as it represents their organization. So I think that's truly powerful. That combined with, I would say, my second thing is BlockKit, which is more developer facing. And I think the reason I'm excited about BlockKit combined with admin APIs is because it allows us to build better custom apps. It allows our customers to build better custom apps. And that, like, I've been able to have conversations with people where they're taking business processes that involve multiple people, multiple days, multiple steps, and converting them into a single application inside of Slack. And just watching some of the things that people have built blow my mind. And it's just things we couldn't have even imagined. And so I think the combination of that only begins to amplify it at scale. And so I'm really excited about that.
That's great, and I'll answer for myself more of a how we work question on the product organization. I think we have a renewed energy around focusing in on the human beings that use Slack and the little details that make their work simpler, more pleasant, and more productive, which you've heard us repeat over and over. So Stewart, you heard talk about this, the utility curve of every feature. Are we really making it that much easier to get the user to work a little bit faster, a little bit more efficiently? Are we really focused in on what their problems are? And Tamar has really pushed us to think in this user mindset so that we're always building with the people in mind. And I think that's really exciting for this upcoming year, that everything we do, whether it's on the platform or the infrastructure team, we're really thinking about the human beings that are going to use our product. And so with that, I'm actually going to close us out. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be up here for questions if anyone has anything they didn't want to put on Slido. But thank you so much for coming to the Roadmap session.
Thank you.
Thank you.